the geometry of meaning, I based it on the fact that the Egyptians said that all meaning is an angle. I've been trying to find out more about that, and every Egyptian I ask can only tell me, yes, that's true, but he can't give me any more details. Mm-hmm. So I've been pursuing those myself, and that's what's in that book.
Mm-hmm. So what you've looked at is a fundamental way in which the very basic measure formula of physics, based on first principles of position, velocity, speed, can be viewed as angular relationships in a way that we might say is parallel to or isomorphic with the symbolism of astrology.
Just to put it very simply, you remember the Solomon's wives. The two women wanted the same baby. And Solomon said, well, I'll cut the baby in two and give you each half. And one of them said, okay with me. And the true mother said, oh no, I rather she had the baby. So then Solomon knew which was the true mother. Mm-hmm. In other words, any opposition has a mediating axis. In this case, the first one was possession. They both wanted to possess the baby, but the mediating axis was love, and it was independent axis. So that enabled him to perceive the true mother. Mm-hmm. And this is what I mean by geometry of meaning. These angles between things show you what mediates something else.
Mm-hmm. What we seem to be getting at here is an understanding of the underlying depth of astrology in a way that seems to address some of the most fundamental distinctions that we make in our daily lives.
Well, it's a very old and very comprehensive view of what? Well, it's a view of the whole of things, whereas science has proceeded very well and very successfully along a line where they look for things that obey laws. They have to neglect things that don't obey laws. Now, this gives them a one-sided view of the universe. It's like a sort of policeman's view of things. He's interested in any violation of laws. He's not interested in the things that are going peacefully. So science is getting us an overemphasis on what would be called determinism. Laws tell you what's going to happen.
It's as if astrology is a larger, more comprehensive, holistic system within which science fits. And as such, science may gain some insights about itself from...
Especially when it goes into cosmology. Mm-hmm. You see, for instance, talking about evolution, now wait, I must go back. Science, the basic postulate is that it's objective. Mm-hmm. So they have to stick to things that are objects, like particles, that behave according to laws. Then they get to a problem like that of evolution. So what does evolution due to? Due to chance, according to the best authorities. But what's objective about chance? You can puzzle yourself with that, answering that question. I won't try to answer it now. I just think it's not objective.
Well, I suppose, other than a mathematical definition, we don't really quite know what randomness is.
Well, randomness, if it's anything, it's not according to law. So you have to be able to deal with things that don't behave according to law. Now that's been going on for quite some time in science now, and instead of laws, they have probabilities. Now, so we need to distinguish the area where the probabilities apply and the area where laws apply. I like to think of trying to get certainty in machinery. You want the machinery to work, the car has to be determined, but that doesn't mean you're determined. Mm-hmm. But you are in the universe too. So there's something in the universe that doesn't obey laws. Mm-hmm. I like to put it that the machinery is there for you to use. Mm-hmm. And the laws of nature are there for all life to use, not just you.
So there's a sense, from an astrological perspective, of realms in which laws apply and realms in which they don't.
Yes.
And which is almost the opposite of science, because scientists often implicitly assume that these
Yes.
laws apply everywhere.
They hope to have the perfect formula that will explain everything. But if you could explain everything, what would be the point of having a universe?
And, well, isn't this a fundamental philosophical question?
Well, that's why I think philosophy needs to step in and help and answer these questions. But let me develop this difference between I mentioned that everything according to law. Well, that's under the planet Saturn. Saturn is also supposed to be Old Father Time. But in the Greek myth of Kronos, which is Greek for Saturn, and it's the root of chronometer, other things dealing with time, Saturn, or Kronos, ate his own children. What does that mean? It means things born in time die in time. Things have a finite life. Things have to obey this law. And in the myth, Rhea, the wife of Kronos, doesn't like this rule that he's going to eat his own children. So to let Zeus escape, she wraps a stone in swaddling clothes and feeds it to Kronos, who eats the stone, enables Zeus to escape. Now this, to me, is a very subtle way of describing what the inventor does. He recognizes there is the law and does the necessary thing to obey the law, but then he is able to use the law for that. By knowing the law, he can use it. That's what this whole law business is for. It's so that life can use these laws, and you get plants are the first things to use the laws of chemistry to regulate their metabolism, so they grow up. And things that aren't live don't go uphill.
So it seems to me as if we're coming right around again to your original discussion of how you understood the principle of control in the helicopter involving the 90-degree
that was
angle.
the key to the whole thing, to recognize that there was a third derivative, something that could use law, so you don't have to say everything is. Well, of course, you can't say everything is determined because you don't know how to find where a thing is even now to predict it. But it could be an ideal. You would say, I hope to find, and I will predict. But now that doesn't apply to everything. It only applies to the to the things that are going to use the law.
And you seem to be getting at a fundamental paradox in science itself, because it doesn't allow purpose. It doesn't allow what we call teleology.
Well, that's the funny thing. You would think technology to be inferior to science, theoretical science. But theoretical science is stuck in this theory that everything is determined, whereas technology goes ahead and makes all kinds of things that you control. In fact, if they made an automobile you couldn't control, you wouldn't buy it. Everything you get has some kind of control on it. You can use that to cook the toast or do whatever you want to do, but you're able to control, use the laws to get what you want. Now, the realm of law is under Saturn. Now, I can't talk about what's beyond Saturn. That's where life comes in, because science doesn't have any theory about life that I think deserves to be called a theory. I could talk about chance, but I'd rather go back to nuclear physics, where a whole new realm has opened up. This is the realm of probability. They can't predict when an atom will radiate or when a carbon-14 will change, or any of these things can't be predicted in a precise way. So they use probabilities, which is like insurance tables. The insurance company can say what percentage of people will die before they're 86 or something like that, but they can't tell what happens to individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But they're perfectly happy with probability, and they're liable to say we have exact probability about this and that.
It almost is a paradox, isn't it?
Yes,
Exact probability.
Because when you have a probability, it's because you don't have a law. It's not the same as a law.
Mm-hmm.